Let's talk about President Jalango. How possible, how impossible it is. If you've been keen this past week, a lot of Kenyans have been prophets about how Jalango will never be president. But Jalango is hellbent. He says if Raila Odinga doesn't make it to be president again, then he, Phelix Odiwuor, Langata MP Jalas, is going to be the first Luo president. Welcome to the show. My name is Kimathi. This is the Kenya Report political show where we review the news, we review what was in the news, we review top political personalities, and we talk about issues that maybe, just maybe, were not spoken of as they ought to have been spoken of. Well, a Jalango presidency seems to be a joke, so to speak, for many Kenyans. First, because he's a comedian with very little political history. Second, because many people feel like Jalas is just not, how do I put it, intellectually capable of handling those things right now and in the future. If you ask those folks, others feel like he's a traitor. The Luo will never like him after he walked out of Baba. But Jalas says the picture is much bigger than what we can see. So what's going to happen? Who is Jalango? What is the likeliness of a Jalas presidency? Why is everybody seemingly getting it wrong about this Jalas prophecy? Come on, ride along, let's talk about it, let's break it down. And if you think I'm wrong, of course, you can always write your comment down in the comment box. So, the presidency for the Luo community for a long time has been synonymous with Raila Odinga. That's the first fundamental title and facts we have to establish before we even start the whole video. That's like the title of the video. And Raila Odinga has for a long time lived up to that position. We can say his shoes are very big when it comes to being the man who would be in the president's seat if Luos were to get it. But it's been very, very, very evasive since you know when. And Jalango is saying, we are the new Luo blood. We love Baba. We followed him all these years. But now it's time for new people. But the idea is new people will come from within Baba's circle. People who have stayed with him from the beginning to the end. Jalas only came the other day. Yeah, he was a comedian. He was on radio entertaining ordinary folk. But now he's in parliament and he thinks he's the most suited for Baba. And folks are like, how? What do you mean? Well, this is what he means. As we've said, here in Africa, in Kenya today, most people, if not all of us, are coming from a point of zero. After independence, everybody, every African person had no connections. We had no money, we had no wealth, unless you were in the political class. Even them, they weren't rich then. So the idea of an African person, a Kenyan person of any caliber, any level of education, rising to unimaginable levels of success, it's very viable here. Maybe that could be debated in places where democracy is older, in the first world, in America, but not here, man. Come on. We have seen the most unlikely candidates become the most unlikely people. And even if you look in those places I'm talking about, look at Ukraine, the embattled country right now. Their president is a comedian. Yes, just like the last. His name is Zelensky. Matter of fact, Zelensky was so visionary about the presidency, he made a movie about being president where he was a comedian who became president. In the film, if you go to YouTube, you'll see it. Or you know the story already because most Kenyans are that informed. It's never impossible because the politics of a democracy is never about merit of qualification. It's emotional politics. It's what Raila Odinga plays with the Luos. It's what Uhuru Kenyatta played with Kikuyus when they were with Ruto at The Hague. They play with our emotions. It's what's been happening since time immemorial. It's what the colonialists used to get into our land and take it, and take our women, and take our place, and rule and run us. For all those years they ran us. It's always emotional. Logic is always backseat when it comes to these issues. We don't like using logic, not just as Africans, but as humans. Emotions are strong. If you like a politician for how they talk, for what they say, it doesn't matter if their politics are shit. It doesn't matter if they have no understanding of public policy. It doesn't matter if their integrity is shit. It doesn't matter if they are suspects of an international criminal court. It's emotion. And no one can, I'm looking for the word, no one can harness public emotion stronger than a comedian, stronger than an entertainer. I mean, if you ask someone, I saw guys saying Jalango would never be MP. Yeah, he wouldn't unseat Nixon or whoever else was up there. Even Baba was dubious about a Jalango political career. At first they want to give him, but he's MP now. And even, maybe if you look even at the list of rejects, there are still people there whose political careers will still start. I mean, we have guys like Gachagua, who is deputy president. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? This is how a Jalango presidency will come down. Let's now get to the meat of the matter. After Baba has left the scene, which is inevitable, which is very near, after Baba has takes a step back, being who he is and having held that immense influence, not just within the Luo community, not just in Luo Nyanza or surrounding areas, but throughout the country, being a bearer of that mission, having lit a fire under the ass of pretty much every president since the 70s, Raila Odinga is going to be tempted to name a successor when he leaves. And that's where the drama is going to start. Because 9 out of 10 times when democratic leaders, or even non-democratic, even monarchs, choose, appoint, select a successor, it's usually a wrong choice. Usually doesn't work. And for us, we don't need to look very far. Let's look at 2002. When President Moi was leaving office, he was under immense pressure by the international community to relinquish his position, to change things. The country was warming up to the politics of the new century, new millennium. And the country was much younger than it used to be. The new generations were not colonially thinkers. Yeah, they were not colonized in the mind. And what happened is Raila Odinga, Martha Karua, Mwai Kibaki, James Orengo, Kiraitu Murungi, the whole clique of very disgruntled political class that had been under the thumb of Moi those years came together to make sure that Moi's chosen, selected, announced, declared successor, Uhuru Kenyatta, would never become president. And they did it. Because successors usually, just like the way people elect their leaders on an emotional basis, successors are usually selected emotionally. And they're not just selected by one person. So if Baba decides to settle on a person to say, this is the next Raila Odinga, now that I'm, retreating back into the shadows, or I'm taking other roles that do not involve being on the active ballot, then it's going to name somebody. And the naming is going to be contributed to by a lot of people. In Baba's inner circle, people who have Raila Odinga's ear, people who do not like comedians, and they do not like Jalango. But that's exactly how you make a king. Because once the politics of no Kikuyu president, no Kalenjin president, once that politics takes momentum, it's going to be like the politics of the 2000s when it was saying no more Nyayo. And everybody's going to sing that song. And they're going to need a person, most likely from the Luo community or the Luo community, but I put my money on the Luos. And it's not going to be Baba's successor. People won't like that successor. And I have a feeling it won't be the right person. Of course, it can be Babu Owino. No. Who can it be? Edwin Sifuna? Maybe, but no. The Kenyan politics today is changing in a way that's very different from even our surrounding democracies. And I said surrounding democracies, I don't necessarily mean our neighbors. Most of the democracies aren't really democracies. But ours is changing. It was changed by William Ruto. When he came around with a emotion-whipping campaign of saying it's poor versus rich, and Jalango is going to pick that same thing. That's what he's going for from William Ruto. Because all men in and around the political class are in awe of this presidency. They're in awe of how these guys won. Even on the other side, even questions of legitimacy and election justice notwithstanding, folks are still shocked at how William Ruto managed to move against such a strong wave, such a strong current, and just swim upstream like a salmon and just become president like that. First time. And Jalas feels that that formula can be replicated to help the Luos get that presidency that's been evading them. Jalango is going to change tactics. He's not going to play it like Raila Odinga. He's not going to do it in any way like the ODM guys. He's going to do it like William Ruto. And he's going to win. I can't tell you it's 27, 28, or 32, that a Jalango presidency is actually the most likely presidency right now. after the obvious guys. I mean, after Ruto does its time, maybe gives to Gachagua or another Gachagua, or maybe it's never going to happen like that, but Jalas, he cannot be counted out. That's what I had to say, man. Thank you for watching. If you have something to say about it, you can write it down. If you think all I'm saying is a lot of bullshit, then you should know its opinion. And you are viewers, and the Kenyan politics is politics that should be business of the youth. It should be business of us young people who will be whining and crying about taxes and all those problems tomorrow. After now, we are no longer the youth, but the owners of the country. Thank you for watching. This is Kenya Report, Between the News.